We appreciate the opportunity to take a minute. We presented to the Public Works Finance Committee at their last meeting, and there was a desire for us to bring a report to the council in conjunction with our request for bid acceptance for the AR chip seal package that we hope to apply to our roadway this year. We want to give it just a brief presentation on our road conditions. So if you'll humor me, I'll run through this really quickly and get through this. Obviously, our infrastructure is very important. Our roadway infrastructure is something that it's the lifeblood of the community in many ways. It allows people to get to where they're going. They get to travel to work. We can do business. We can go visit people. It accommodates social interaction, and it's the entire network. It's not just the road that the cars drive on, but it's also the bike lanes. It's also the pedestrian facilities, and so we really make every effort we can to try and maintain that roadway system. As many on the council are aware, we have made big efforts to keep our good roads good. It's something that we really have to do if we hope to have an acceptable level of service for our roads. This chart just basically shows what it costs in each category for treatment. And so for every dollar that we can spend keeping a good road good, it costs about $7 on the back end to fix a failed road, to go in and completely reconstruct a road. And we have a huge investment in this infrastructure. And so our philosophy is that we really want to try and do surface treatments and treat our roads, maintain our roads. I know that we've used the analogy before as we've presented this of the oil change in a car. It's the equivalent of changing the oil. You don't buy a car and drive it until the engine blows up and then buy a new engine or buy a new car. We want to do the oil changes, maintain the car that we have. And it's the same thing with any maintenance procedure, anything that it makes sense, anything you do at home. You don't not re-roof your house until it's dripping into your kitchen and then tear it all down and put a new roof on. You put new shingles on when they need to happen. And it's the same thing with the roadway system in much the same way, because water really is the enemy to our roads. So keeping them sealed up and keeping water out of our base section is really important. This is called the Kendall curve. It shows that if we just put pavement down and we let it go, this is the curve of degradation in the pavement. And down here it kind of shows what you start to see on the surface. The cracking, which then turns into potholes, which then turns into Almond Street. And so what we want to do is we want to treat the roads and keep them sealed up so that we can prolong this. And we really have to, because I know all you are very aware, funding our road maintenance is a terribly difficult thing. It's not something that's like our enterprise funds where we can charge a fee for what we do. Often the general fund is having to supplement as much as it can to try and help us eke out what we can. And so our commitment is that every dollar that we can get, we know that Gary and Finance and Les and everybody's worked really hard along with the council in the budget formulation process to get us every one of those dollars. And so we want to spend it effectively. And that's really the goal of our program. These are the actual historic asphalt costs for the city of Moscow, and you can see what's gone on historically. There was a time when surface treatments really didn't gain a lot of traction because asphalt was so cheap that really just milling it off and putting it back wasn't a terrible alternative.
Oh, the good old days.
And then when this spiked like this, as you can see, that's when that just became no longer feasible. We have to, once it's down, we've got to maintain it and keep it in good condition. Another thing that happened that I'll just touch on really briefly, a lot of times we get the question that, oh, now that gas prices are cheaper.
Is there going to be a quiz on this?
There's going to be, yeah. Yeah, you have to recreate this. We're going to bring out a whiteboard.
First thing I thought, when I first saw this thing, I thought, what is this, some kind of a distillery for liquor?
That's exactly right. This is an oil refinery. So there are funner versions of distilleries, and this is not the most fun one. But with the oil refinery, what happened was when gas prices spiked, and I only bring this up because we do get the question, now that gas prices have gone down, does that mean that we're going to see significantly lower asphalt prices? And the answer is it won't follow exactly what the gas price is doing, and this is why. There's this piece of equipment that was installed. It's called a delayed coker. And really about $3 a gallon was the threshold for the oil companies to make that a worthwhile investment. And so when we had the big spike in prices over several years, most of the refineries have installed this coker. And so what used to come off vacuum distillation was asphalt oil. And so we got everything that came off the bottom of this vacuum distillation. It was a waste product. Now that the coker is there, they have the option to either send it down and we get the asphalt oil, or they can send it back through the coker and they can come up with fuel oil again. And so really the asphalt industry then has to compete with the fuel oil industry now for any emulsion that we get. And so it's really affected the price that we'll pay moving forward for this. One very helpful thing, as was discussed during the audit, the Idaho Senate did approve the gas tax increase, and so we saw an increase of a little over $200,000 that goes into the street fund. I'm going to move into our proposed projects for 2016 for the surface projects. We put out, many of you may recall who were on the council last year, there was a project that was put out for an asphalt rubber chip seal. It's a process that we've been investigating for the last 3 years now. Our Public Works Director, Les McDonald, Kevin Lilly, our city engineer, and myself have gone out to do site visits, along with Scott Bontrager, our assistant city engineer. And we're very encouraged by this. We have a toolbox that we can use, and we've had quite a few tools that we can use on the better end of where roads are at. And so when roads are in better condition, we have options for treatments that we could use. But we had a pretty big gap from what we'd call, of roads that we had to put in a category that we called pending rebuild. So they weren't awful yet. They weren't falling off the face of the map, but there just really wasn't much we could do with them. And so the AR chip seal was something that we were very encouraged by. It was a process that was developed that I'll go into here a little bit and talk about. It developed in the Southwest and it's starting to move inland, and we had some good examples of where it has been used in freeze-thaw climates, which had been kind of the obstacle because no one really wanted to be the guinea pig in a freeze-thaw climate. And the Tahoe area became that guinea pig, the Lake Tahoe area in California. And so it started to move inland. We put out a bid package last year for this, and we got some really high bids. And so what we decided to do this year was to put out the bid package again, but also put out a slurry seal package. This is an image of a slurry seal that we did here in Moscow. Many of you are familiar with these again. Really, a slurry seal goes down on a good road. It's the lightest treatment. It's the oil change. We're sealing this thing back up, preventing the oxidation. So we put out a slurry seal package with the AR package so that regardless of where it came in, we'd have a good project that we wanted to do this summer. So we'd hoped to be able to do the AR if the prices came in right, the AR chip seal, asphalt rubber chip seal, but we were prepared with an alternate package for a slurry seal. So this is a vicinity map of the chip seal locations that we were proposing for the asphalt rubber chip seal. D Street, this goes from the highway all the way to Hayes, and potentially we might move a little beyond Hayes, and then within this it shows Lincoln Street as well, this stretch of Lincoln going from B up to E Street. And this is an image of the condition. And this is where the AR chip is really an attractive treatment. When we had roads in this condition previously where we've got a lot of patching, as you can see here, and we've got alligator cracking that started, that was something where we really just had to say, well, we're going to try and do as much crack filling as we can and hope that we can nurse this thing along. But this roadway doesn't have a lot of life left in it. It would be a pending rebuild. And as you all know, D Street's a really critical facility. We talked about the lack of east-west connectors through our city, and this is a very heavily used facility. And so it's something that would be a massively expensive rebuild, very disruptive, but if we can preserve it at this point, we're really excited to be able to do that, and we think that this is a really good candidate for this treatment. The other stretch is a stretch of F Street. This goes from Orchard down to Mountain View, and similar conditions, as you can see. We've got gator areas, we've got transverse cracking, we've got patches from various construction and repair projects. And then a stretch of 6th Street. Same kind of deal. You guys are getting the feel for this by now, I'm sure. So this is a rubberized chip operation. These are images in a video that we actually took ourselves. The city of West Richland in the Tri-Cities area did a large asphalt rubber chip project last year that we were able to go out and watch the procedure. So this is an emulsion truck, and really one of the big differences that we get out of this asphalt rubber is it really forms basically a membrane that goes over the road that's very flexible, and that's why it's really attractive for cracking. The cracks don't reflect through because of this membrane that forms. And the way that that's done is it's done with a chemical bond. It's a recycled product. They use tires, used tires that they grind up for the rubber, and then it's integrated in this product, and it's put down at such a high temperature that you get a chemical bond that forms this membrane. And that's really the attractive part. So this is a pretty typical emulsion truck that would apply it, but this is the difference here. This big unit on the back heats up the emulsion as it puts it down, so it goes down very hot at over 300 degrees. And so this is a stretch of road where it's been applied.
What time does that thing lift off the ground?
Pardon me.
How thick is it, Tyler?
The emulsion or the final product, Walter?
Final product.
The final product is about like a traditional chip seal. So you're talking about half an inch.
Thickness of your chips, basically.
Yeah, it's basically the thickness of your chips. It does go down. The emulsion goes down quite a bit thicker. Sorry, I believe
One
this.
thing about D Street will clearly be a
How
very
many
visible
gallons per
street.
linear foot? I mean, when we do a normal chip seal, we're at a half gallon per.
This is usually shot at about 0.65 is usually where they're shooting this. It's really deeply embedded, and the interesting thing, we'll set up some field trips for anybody who's interested when this is in town. We have a lot of people through our street maintenance co-op that want to come see it from the region because this is a first project in the area, in our area. But it doesn't shed much rock at all. It's pretty amazing, you know, because one of the hard things about a chip is that you shed rock, especially in an urban area. We shed rock when we have curb and gutter. We have bicyclists that just hate it, and you'll be amazed at how little rock this actually sheds. It's pretty impressive.
Are they applying the rock with a chipper?
Yes, they apply a rock with a chipper, so the chipper will come right behind. I've actually got a video, and I don't know why it's not pulling up on this, that I can show anybody who's interested in the aftermath. But so they'll apply. It's very traditional. The rock will come. It's really important that the rock stay right on the hills of the emulsion truck, and then they'll come over it with a roller. They'll have the rubber tire rollers, and then they'll come over with a steel drum roller, and then follow it up with a sweeper and take whatever extra rock is on there. So those are the areas that we're planning on doing with rubberized chip. I won't dive a ton into the rebuilds because that's really not the purpose of our presentation today, but I think you're all aware that we'll be coming with a proposal once we get bids back for some 3rd Street reconstruction that is badly needed. I mean, this is our 3rd Street. It's right out in front of East City Park, a very visible spot of town, a highly used road, and this one's done. So this is something that isn't eligible. You can see that this is just beyond useful life. There's just not a lot that we can do with that street. We have the Moscow Middle School project. This is something we're really excited about. We had bids come in that we were happy about, and we'll be bringing to you. We were very pleased with the bids that we had come in. But this does provide a good basis of comparison, because one of the questions that we get about the AR chip a lot is, well, it is more costly. I mean, if you look at it, our slurry seal bid came in, at I think it was somewhere around $1.65 a square yard, whereas the asphalt rubber chip came in at $8.60 a square yard. So the question becomes, okay, why the one and not the other? And also, aren't you getting close to an overlay cost? Well, why don't we just do an overlay at that cost? And there are a couple reasons that I think are important to bring up, since it is something that we hear a lot. So just taking the excellent bids that we got on this D Street project. If you take the bids that we got on this D Street project, we're looking at about $12 a square yard versus $8.60 a square yard for an overlay. And what that doesn't include is the ramps that you have to do. Because when they've set the guidelines through the ADA regulations for what's considered a surface treatment and what's considered a structural, any structural work triggers the need to replace all the ramps within the project area. And so, you can imagine something like D Street that has several ramps going up that road. We can add easily $60,000, $70,000 worth of work just in ramps that can happen. And so it is more cost effective in that regard when there are roads that it can be used for. And then the other thing we have to consider is an unmitigated crack with an overlay will typically reflect through an overlay at about an inch a year. And so if you have any significant gatoring, the rubberized chip is a better option for what we're trying to do. Now, there are definitely places like this, like D Street, where we will use overlays. It is a tool in the toolbox, and there are places where it's the appropriate treatment. But we're excited to have a treatment that is less expensive and that we can use on roads that we wouldn't use a traditional overlay on.